I wasn't really quite sure what to talk about because, I mean, they give you a title for these things, but you don't take any notice of that. There were a number of things to do with APL, but I decided that I couldn't really discuss the future of dyadic iota before a group like this. So instead, I would like to talk about the pocket knife. This is a very simple little thing that you can attach to your key ring. It is simple and elegant, inexpensive. It was conceived to perform a relatively simple function like cut things. In the hands of the many customers who got it, they were able to do many more things with it. And so it became a fairly conspicuous success. There are many of these things in the world, and probably if we were to examine all of your pockets, we would find many of them in this room. Hi. This is known as Exhibit 1. There are a number of functions, of course, which this does not perform. It's very poor at removing corks from bottles and other essential things around the house. And so various companies took to enhancing the product. Before you know it, a number of different things were added to this rather simple and elegant little device. Notably things like a can opener, a bottle opener, a screwdriver, and we finished up with Exhibit 2. Of course, the more people who get involved in enhancing this product, the more demand there is for additional features. More features can be added to this little device, which we can no longer call simple and elegant, but has more function than the original. Before you know it, we have now, let us be quite clear that the implementers maintained upwards compatibility there is no function that this can perform which cannot be performed by this, and so on up the tree. Now let's look at what we've accomplished as a result of this transformation. For every 1,000 of these things that we sell one of these. Because the number of people who want this hanging on their is quite small. And for every one of these that we sell, we probably sell about 10 of these. And if those numbers were right, I have no idea how many of these things get sold, and I just made those numbers up. But in making them up, they fit quite nicely with the thesis that for every functional addition that you make to a product, you reduce the market for it by a factor of 2. Is this absolute heresy? What? This thing has 10 functions more than this does. So the market for it should be about 1 over 2 to the nth, the 10th, which is about right. And this has 3 more functions than this. And so you see, it all fits together if the numbers were accurate. Well, the numbers probably are not accurate because I made them up to fit the thesis. Standard practice when you research. The market for this product is relatively small. I'm talking about small markets. I'm absolutely intrigued by the latest IBM advertisement. This is apropos of nothing. The one that talks about solutions for a small planet. I keep thinking about those poor people out on Pluto making calls to intergalactic headquarters in Armand. I'm sure maybe they meant Mercury. What we are guilty of, not guilty of necessarily, but what we do in the technology bit is to keep adding function to existing products. We see something that's moderately successful, and we like to go on adding bits to it. There's another, not directly relevant, but interesting product like television. People are spending a lot of time and money these days talking about enhancing the television set and making it the focus of the domestic information system. Want to add, because most TVs are connected to a cable is a good conduit through which to pass data, so we can connect the TV set to the internet. And before you know it, we can have this device, maybe a keyboard, and we've completely built one of these sorts of things in the home. What I think that we fail to notice in this is that the television set that we know and love in our home is the center of entertainment. It's where the family or a group of people assemble to view some form of entertainment. It is not the one-on-one that we associate with computers, and particularly with browsing something like the internet. If you want to look at what the device is, that's the center of the domestic information system, what would you consider it to be? Not the TV, clearly. Not the computer. It's the refrigerator. In almost every house that you go into, you will find the refrigerator door is the display device for all of the pertinent information about that household. This is where we keep all of the doctor's appointments, the skating lesson times, the children's art, and so on. Interesting technology, because when a new piece of information arrives, like mother's appointment with a psychiatrist. This has to be somehow inserted into the database and displayed. And this thing is pretty full. So what does the average housewife do with this piece of paper with the name and the telephone number at the time? Well, she does an elementary form of garbage collection first of all, and removes from the display all the things which are in fact concerning events of the past. All the dead information is, we do not do a regular garbage collection, we just do an event-driven garbage collection. This is quite efficient. It means you don't have to do it too often. There still isn't room on the display device for this important information. So she then takes the magnet and puts the new piece of paper on top, probably on top of 4 other pieces of information on the device, such that the psychiatrist's name and telephone number are clearly visible. And we have a good partial view of what's underneath. You would probably call this technique Windows.
Yeah, but my refrigerator doesn't crash.
Too often.
Do you think that Windows was a product of Xerox PARC in Palo Alto? It wasn't. The Windows technology was invented by 50 million housewives simultaneously to solve a simple problem of displaying data when there was insufficient room for all of the information that we wish to display. So what's happening in TV technology which could possibly influence this? Well, there are some things like high definition TV and so on, but that's not too interesting. But the plasma flat screen display is certainly very interesting. Usually the TV manufacturers will show you this as a framed picture on the wall, as though we are going to sit in a room and look at a picture on the wall for our entertainment. Our Gauguin is about to be replaced by Barney at the flick of a switch. It doesn't seem to make much sense. However, it makes a great deal of sense to have a flat screen TV, because if we had such a device, then we could mount it on the refrigerator door. Now you could perhaps attach the internet to that, and now you would have something which is perhaps the next generation of domestic information systems, maybe even a touch screen or something, that we could do remote updates to this information stored on the refrigerator. It has all kinds of interesting possibilities. What's all this got to do with the subject matter? No keynote speech would be complete without a mention of the subject We came across APL back in the late 60s when Roger, bless his heart, got involved in assisting Ken and Aidan and others in the implementation of the first APL time-sharing system. That was back in 1966 or 67, which is about 30 years ago. By 1968, we had made a corporate decision to install APL and offer it as a commercial product. We considered it to be an inadequate product at that time, and so we got on this treadmill of enhancement. IP Sharp Associates and STSC indulged in a sort of pissing contest to see who could add most to the rather simple and elegant product that we started out with. To ensure that we added lots, we actually had agreements with STSC to trade additions that we made, and we also made joint additions so that both systems could grow as big as they could get. Then along came Jim Brown and APL2. He added the spoon and the fork. We wanted to make a meal of it. One of the advantages of products like knives is that although you do this, and you can create this sort of thing, which is a relatively small market, you can still get this. One of the disadvantages of software is that once you start to add all of these things, going back to the original is very difficult. Try to obtain a copy of XM1 from IBM, for instance. It has long since been decommitted. Try to get a copy of any of these things as they transformed themselves up this scale. Simply because we thought in our innocence that the upward compatibility feature obviated the need for any of the reduced function systems. And I just sometimes wonder whether that's true or not. Sometimes wonder whether we overdid it, whether the money that we spent on development, adding things to this, might not have been better spent on education of some kind, with a smaller product. Human beings are very slow to adapt to new technology. And in the technology business, it's very difficult to remember that all the time. Probably most people in this room would find it difficult to understand how somebody could not have access to electronic mail. I mean, it seems this is a part of your life. I mean, we've had electronic mail for how long? 30 years, 25 years? It's part of our lives, and we accept that. It's like being surprised when you find somebody who hasn't got a telephone. It's great. But yet, it's not very long ago that there were a lot of people who didn't have a telephone. My parents didn't have a telephone until they were well past middle age. My mother never actually got used to that as a medium of communication. It was too high tech. When the phone rang, she always straightened her hair before she answered. There are many people who feel the same sort of way about technology. You see what I mean? We're very slow to adapt to these things. And I think that what we presented in the APL spectrum of products was something which moved rather too quickly. 30 years is not very long in the overall scheme of things. It has certainly taken more than 30 years to make electronic mail halfway acceptable. The number of people who actually make use of it is very small. Is it useful? Of course it is. It's demonstrably useful, and it's an easy product to sell, and it's so very simple, and you can put your arms around it, and there really isn't any argument about it. And yet, 30 years later, we still have something like 95% of the population not making any use of it. So what chance do we stand when we take something as sophisticated and difficult to comprehend as APL, and we keep enhancing it so that if you don't look at it for 3 weeks, you hardly recognize it. And we expect people to get involved in this and buy into it. And so the thought that I would like to leave with you, and I don't want to belabor this, is if you buy the argument of the knife, would you also buy the same argument for any cutting-edge type system?
Questions or take any questions from the floor? Yeah.
My cutting device has one blade. I'd like a show of hands of everybody that has a cutting device with only one blade. Okay, 2 blades, 3 blades, 4 blades, or more.
Joey, how about no blades?
No blades.
Razor blades.
Float on the empty piece.
Switchblades, yeah.
Mr. Brown. Scissors, anyone?
I'd just like to make one comment. I appreciated everything you said with one exception. But my view is not so much that I added a spoon and a fork to the device, but rather that I took a device which was able to cut paper and butter and generalized it into a device that could cut more difficult problems like cord and twine.
And sequoia trees.
Dave, you think, of course, the long term.
It was wrong for RP Sharp and STSC to follow the course that they did. You believe that there was realistically ever a point in that history where you could have taken a different course given the commercial pressures and so forth?
And no, I believe that we had the purest of motives for what we were doing. All I'm doing is looking back on that some years later and saying, I wonder if we really did the right thing. I'm not giving you any answers at all. That's not my job. It's only to ask the question.
Jim?
Yeah, I think you said at the last that you're recommending emphasis on education. And I'd like to make a comment on that first. That it reminds me of what my mentor in graduate school, Professor Aiken, said about 40 years ago, and which he had been building computers at universities, recommended that the university stop doing that, start concentrating on education and how to use these. And that, in fact, is how I got started in GMA Dell, was that I was trying to develop a tool for my own use to teach the program to be established. So I'm very much in sympathy with this idea that we should emphasize education, because it has been my feeling that when we started with that motivation, continued with it, everybody took Dell off and started it. Nobody did anything very interesting. So I would like to hear your further comments if that was what you said.
Sort of, yeah. I think that the comment was aimed more at promoting the idea of stability and something that people could get used to rather than have to keep up with. The nature of technology is that you will always be able to develop it faster than people can absorb it. And I don't think that we were sufficiently aware of that.
Wouldn't you say, to some extent, the market is still a very immature technology? That we're in the age of the motor car before the Model T4, and that to some extent, what we need in terms of your pen knives is the mass market manufacturers who will sell us cheap pen knives. And at the moment, all we have is a very limited number of very focused manufacturers who will just sell us Swiss Army knives.
I don't really buy that, although there is an element, there's a strong economic argument in what you're saying. But given a choice at the same price, which would you buy?
The little one.
The little one.
The big one.
It's not that you don't buy this because it's $150 and this is 10. And so you say, oh, look. I mean, there is an argument there, but I don't think it's the principal one. Yes.
I think if what you want to do is propagate something, you don't really worry about education, you worry more about seduction. If you could get something that like children would find fun to play with, and then if they could hack it, if they knew the language, you probably could get them to actually do it.
Now?
I have a question. I loved your talk. It's wonderful. Best one so far. I agree with you on the marketplace on the small one. That's what I believe. This is what people really want and need, and will maybe actually make money on the small one. But the whole time I was thinking, Microsoft and Bill Gates, the world's richest human, is making huge, huge money with wonderful marketing and putting more spoons and forks, knives and a can opener and an automatic yogurt maker. Word is 1.5 million lines of code. Windows NT has more lines of code than MVS. And Bill Gates smiles when somebody reminds him of it. So my language 0, simple is better, and it's tiny, but it's faster. I think it may be tinier than APL360 in concepts, but it's faster and easier to deal with, and kind of like APL2 in ways. But anyway, that's not the point of the question. The question is, sorry for the commercial interruption. The question being, it appears the facts, though, contradict your beautiful thought of simple is better, and Microsoft seems to be winning dollar-wise with, oh, we can add that. So you flog us in the APL community for adding bells and whistles. Hey, we should flog Microsoft for writing such huge stuff that I break it multiple times a week, Windows NT. I sit down at a day, start typing, and I get the blue screen of death. This is because no human can debug that many lines of code, or groups of humans. It's evil stuff. But I'd like to make money. So if you have suggestions or thoughts, or I'll sit down.
Jim?
Yeah, two quick things. One in response to that and that, which is that I think there's still a lot of people running Windows 3 point something, and that may say something in spite of all the new bells and whistles, Windows 95 and Windows 2025 or whatever. The other thing, however, is I think it was not Jim Brown, but actually Ken Iverson who introduced the book.
Very good. Duncan, go ahead.
I'm interested that you say you can no longer get the single blade. You can't buy it, you're right. No one will take money for it, but you can get loads of single blade APLs for free.
Blade usually broken.
Well, if there's nothing further, coffee break time is on, and concurrent session starts at 10:30.